The Galactic Empire's warship Iron Talon descended upon the remote human colony of Vels 9 like a blade through flesh. Plasma fire scorched the sky, reducing the settlement's defenses to molten slag. Stormtroopers marched through the smoldering ruins, dragging survivors from their hiding places, farmers, engineers, children. And among them, a woman in tattered bridal white, her wrists bound, her face streaked with ashen blood. She did not weep. She did not beg. She only watched. Captain Draven Krell of the Imperial 7th Legion sneered as he inspected the prisoners. Pathetic, he muttered, his boot crushing a fallen wedding wreath underfoot. Then his gaze snagged on the bride. She was slight, her dark hair half unraveled from its braid, her eyes downcast. A trophy. Governor Vorlik of the Outer Rim had a taste for exotic brides, and this one, delicate, broken, would make a fine gift. Bring her, Krell ordered. A stormtrooper yanked the woman forward, and she stumbled, her bare feet scraping against the charred earth. One of the troopers laughed. Think she'll last a week with Vorlik? Another grinned. He'll break her before dawn. The bride said nothing. Aboard the Iron Talon they stripped her of her torn gown, scrubbed the grime from her skin, and dressed her in fine silks fit for a governor's bed. She endured it all in silence. When the ship's medic scanned her, the readings showed nothing unusual: malnourishment, old scars, a heartbeat slow and steady. No threats. Just a woman. Krell didn't bother with her name. You'll serve Governor Vorlik, he told her, leaning close, his breath reeking of stimulants. Obey, and you'll live. Displease him, and you'll wish we'd left you in the dirt. The bride lifted her eyes then, just for a moment, and Krell stiffened. There was something in that look, something cold and measuring, like a predator sizing up prey. But the moment passed, and she bowed her head. That night, Lieutenant Varys, drunk on stolen wine, staggered into the bride's quarters. Governor's got no right to keep you all to himself, he slurred, fingers digging into her arm. She didn't resist as he shoved her onto the bed. Then the lights flickered. When they steadied, Varys was dead. No scream. No struggle. Just a hairpin buried in the base of his skull, its pearl tip glistening with cerebrospinal fluid. The bride eased the corpse to the floor, wiped the pin clean on his uniform, and tucked it back into her hair. She arranged Varys's limbs into a semblance of sleep, draped a blanket over his face, and returned to her seat by the viewport. Outside, the stars burned cold and distant. The next morning, the crew found Varys. Idiot choked on his own vomit, the medic declared, shrugging. Krell ordered the body dumped into the recycler and the incident forgotten. The bride smiled faintly, her fingers tracing the edge of a food tray. They still hadn't asked her name. Good. The Witch of the Void preferred it that way. The Iron Talon hummed with the low, mechanical pulse of a warship at rest, deceptive in its calm. The bride sat in the officer's mess, picking at a plate of sin steak, her movements precise, unhurried. Around her, the Empire's finest laughed, their arrogance thick as the recycled air. They didn't see the way her gaze lingered on the knife beside her plate, or how her fingers brushed the edge of the table, counting exits, measuring distances. Captain Krell's voice cut through the din as he slapped a holopad onto the table. Vorlik once had delivered by week's end, he said, jerking his chin toward the bride. No delays. A junior officer, a sharp-faced woman named Jax, leaned in. Heard he's got a new toy, some kind of pulse drill. Supposed to make screaming last longer. The table erupted in laughter. The bride sipped her water, her throat moving in a slow swallow. Later, in the dim glow of the ship's auxiliary control room, Jax worked alone, inputting coordinates for their jump to the governor's fortress. The bride stepped soundlessly from the shadows, her bare feet making no noise on the grated floor. Jax turned, scowling. The hell are you? The knife from the mess hole slid between her ribs, angled upward, piercing the lung before Jax could scream. The bride held her close, a lover's embrace, as the light faded from her eyes. You talk too much, she murmured, lowering the body to the floor. With quick, efficient strokes, she altered the nav computer, rerouting their course into the dead zone of the Calros Belt, a graveyard of derelict ships and ion storms. By morning, panic slithered through the Iron Talon like a virus. First, Jax was missing. Then, the ship's power flickered, the result of a severed conduit in engineering. Krell stormed through the corridors, barking orders, his face flushed with rage. Find the damn saboteur. The stormtroopers moved in packs now, their blasters clutched tight, their helmets swiveling at every whisper of vented air. The bride watched it all from the edges, a ghost in silk. She pressed a hand to a trooper's back in the crowded hallway, just a stumble, a murmur of apology, and he collapsed 2 steps later, foam bubbling past his lips. The poison on her fingertips was swift, untraceable. The troopers shouted, dragging their comrade away, never noticing the woman who melted into the throng. In the army, she palmed a plasma charge, tucking it into the folds of her gown. A passing engineer frowned at her. "You're not authorized in here." She tilted her head, eyes wide, lips trembling. I was told to fetch something for the captain." The engineer hesitated, then waved her off. "Just hurry up." She smiled as the door hissed shut behind her. By the 3rd night, the body count rose. A lieutenant drowned in his own shower, the water scalding, his vocal cords slit before he could cry out. A comms officer choked on his dinner, his airway swelled shut from an allergic reaction. Strange, given he had no allergies. The ship's medics muttered about contaminants, about bad rations. Krell's hands shook as he reviewed the reports. Then, in the gloom of the lower decks, the bride found her prize, the Iron Talon central reactor, pulsing like a heart. She attached the plasma charge, set the timer, and turned, only to freeze. A stormtrooper stood in the doorway, his blaster raised. "Hands where I can see them." His voice was young, uncertain. She let her shoulders slump, her breath hitching in feigned terror. "Please, I was just trying to hide. Everyone's dying, and I." The trooper's grip faltered. "You're the governor's bride." She lunged. The crack of his neck echoed in the chamber, a sound like snapping twigs. She lowered him gently, almost reverently, then plucked the blaster from his limp fingers. The reactor's hum deepened, the charged timer ticking down. Somewhere above, alarms began to wail. The bride ran, not toward the escape pods, but deeper into the ship's belly, where the shadows were thickest. Let them think her dead. Let them burn their ship searching for a corpse. In the chaos, no one noticed the figure slipping into the captain's quarters, no one heard the whisper of steel unsheathed. Krell would. The Iron Talon shuddered as the plasma charge detonated deep in its belly, the explosion muffled but vicious, like a beast gnawing through its ribs. Klaxons wailed, and the ship lurched, throwing Captain Krell against the wall of his quarters. He cursed, slamming a fist on the comm report. Static hissed back at him. Then the lights died. Emergency strips flickered to life, painting the room in blood-red shadows. Krell fumbled for his sidearm, only to freeze as a voice cut through the dark. "You should have left me in the dirt." The bride stood by the viewport, backlit by the dying glow of the Calros belt. The silks they dressed her in were gone, replaced by a scavenged trooper's undersuit, the fabric clinging to her like a second skin. In one hand, she held the dead stormtrooper's blaster, in the other, a vibroblade purred softly, its edge trembling with hunger. Krell's pulse hammered in his throat. "Who the hell are you?" She stepped forward, the blade catching the light. "They called me Baba Yaga." Recognition flared in his eyes, a name whispered in the barracks, a legend from the Imperial Assassin Corps. A ghost. "You were terminated." Her smile was a razor cut. "I got better." Krell fired. The shot seared past her cheek as she twisted, inhumanly fast, and lunged. The vibroblade scraped against his durasteel pauldron, sending sparks flying. He kicked out, catching her in the ribs, but she rolled with the impact, coming up in a crouch. "You're dead," he snarled. "You've been dead for years." The ship groaned around them, the reactor's failure sending tremors through the deck. Somewhere, metal screamed as a bulkhead gave way. She didn't blink. "Funny. I was going to say the same about you." Krell charged, swinging his pistol like a club. She ducked, the blade flashing up, but he caught her wrist, twisting until the bones creaked. The vibroblade clattered to the floor. For a heartbeat, they were locked together, his breath hot against her face. "You're just a woman," he spat. She headbutted him. Blood burst from his nose as he staggered back. Before he could recover, she snatched the fallen blade and drove it through his boot, pinning his foot to the deck. His scream was raw, animal. She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "And you're just a man." The Iron Talon AI screeched a final warning, reactor critical. Abandoned ship. Krell grabbed her throat, his fingers crushing. "If I die, you die with me." She didn't fight him. Instead, she pressed the blaster to his stomach, and pulled the trigger. The shot wasn't lethal. Not immediately. He collapsed, clutching the smoking wound, his breath coming in wet gasps. She yanked the vibroblade free and turned toward the door. "You're leaving?" he choked out. She paused, glancing back. The Witch of the Void doesn't stay for the dying. Behind her, the ship's corridors burned, the air thick with smoke and the stench of melting steel. She moved through the chaos like a shadow, stepping over bodies, past crewmen too panicked to notice her. The hangar bay was in ruins, but a single escape pod remained, untouched, waiting. She sealed herself inside just as the Iron Talon reactor went critical. The explosion lit up the Kalra's belt, a brief, brilliant star. The pod's viewport reflected the firelight in her eyes as she input new coordinates, not toward safety, not toward home. Toward the Imperial core. A console beeped, an incoming transmission. She opened it. A hologram flickered to life, Governor Vorlik, his face twisted in fury. You. She leaned back, tapping the vibroblade against her knee. Me. His image glitched, the signal straining. I'll have every bounty hunter in the galaxy on your. She cut the transmission. Outside, the stars stretched into hyperspace, their light smearing into streaks. The bride, no, the Baba Yaga, closed her eyes and smiled. The hunt was just beginning. The escape pod shuddered as it broke through the atmosphere of Korath Prime, its heat shields glowing white-hot before cooling to a dull, scarred black. The Baba Yaga braced herself as the pod slammed into the mudflats outside the capital city, its impact sending a flock of carrion birds screeching into the sulfur yellow sky. The hatch hissed open, and she stepped out, her boots sinking into the mire. Korath Prime, home to Governor Vorlik's Winter Palace, and the heart of the sector's slave trade. The air reeked of rotting algae and industrial runoff, the horizon choked with the spires of the city, their polished obsidian gleaming under the sickly light of twin moons. Somewhere in that labyrinth, Vorlik was waiting. She stripped off the trooper's undersuit, revealing the sleek, matte black bodysuit beneath, stolen from an Imperial Spec Ops locker aboard the Iron Talon star. It hugged her like a second skin, its adaptive weave masking her heat signature. From a hidden compartment in the pod, she retrieved the rest of her arsenal, a pair of needle-thin daggers, a compact pulse pistol, and a neural disruptor, the last a relic from her old life, its charge still humming at full capacity. A rustle in the reeds. She spun, blade flashing, only to freeze as a child stumbled into view, his ribs visible beneath grime-streaked skin. He stared at her, wide-eyed, clutching a stolen ration bar. She lowered the dagger. You saw nothing. The boy nodded frantically and bolted. She let him go. The Baba Yaga had no quarrel with the starving. By nightfall, she was in the city, moving through the underworld like smoke. The streets here were a living organism, pulsing with smugglers, informants, and addicts, all of them oblivious to the shadow in their midst. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a bounty puck, its hologram displaying a face she knew too well. *** Baba Yaga. Wanted, alive. 500,000 credits. ***. She smirked. Vorlik was getting desperate. The trail led her to a gambling den called the Siren's Tongue ***, its entrance guarded by hulking brutes in shock collars. Inside, the air was thick with the stench of sweat and spice. At a corner table, a man in an officer's uniform, Commander Dane, Vorlik's right hand, was dealing sabacc with a group of mercenaries. She slid into the seat across from him. Dane's fingers twitched toward his sidearm. This table's occupied. She placed a single credit chip on the felt. I'm here for information. The mercenaries laughed. One reached for her arm, then gasped as her dagger pricked his wrist, a single drop of blood welling up. Touch me, she said softly, and you'll be dead before you hit the floor. The table went still. Dane exhaled. What do you want? Vorlik's schedule. His routines. His weaknesses. And why would I give you that? She leaned forward. Because if you don't, I'll peel the skin from your bones and feed it to the brutes outside. A bluff. Mostly. Dane paled. Then, slowly, he slid a data chip across the table. He's hosting a gala tomorrow night. All the sector's elites will be there. Security will be tight, but... He's paranoid. He'll be wearing a personal shield. It's key to his biometrics. Disable it, and he's just a man. She pocketed the chip. Thank you for your cooperation. One of the mercenaries stood. We're just letting her walk out of here? Dane didn't look up. Sit down, you idiot. That's the Baba Yaga. Silence followed her out the door. The gala was everything Vorlik loved. Opulent, grotesque, a spectacle of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light over guests in jeweled masks, their laughter sharp as broken glass. The Baba Yaga moved among them, her own mask, a sleek, featureless black, drawing no more notice than a shadow. Volek held court at the center of the room, his gilded robe straining over his bulk. The shield generator on his wrist pulsed faintly, a telltale shimmer in the air around him. She waited. When the fireworks began, a distraction she paid a drunken pyrotechniki into a range, she struck. A needle-thin dagger slipped between the ribs of Volek's bodyguard. A pulse round disabled the security drone hovering at his shoulder. Then she was behind him, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered, "You should have left me on Vels 9. He whirled, his shield flaring, but she'd already pressed the neural disruptor to his throat. The device whined. Volek's eyes rolled back. The shield died. Chaos erupted as she dragged him into the nearest alcove, his body limp, his finery tearing on the marble floor. Around them, guests screamed, fleeing in a riot of silk and spilled wine. Volek groaned, blinking up at her. What do you want?" She crouched beside him, her blade tracing the line of his jaw. "You took me for a bride. But I've come as the Reaper." His breath hitched. "Name your price." She smiled. "I already have." The dagger slid home. By the time the guards breached the alcove, she was gone, vanished into the night, leaving behind only a single credit chip on Volek's chest. Payment in full. Somewhere in the city, a comm unit crackled to life. ***, she's heading for the spaceport. ***. The Baba Yaga adjusted her stolen pilot's jacket and boarded the nearest ship, its engines already warm. The galaxy was vast, and the Empire had many throats left to cut. She input the coordinates and let the stars claim her.